Alrighty, welcome back to the Three-Handed Bandits channel. It has been some time, but we are back and better than ever, unveiling our new off-season summer series where we're going to be breaking down each NFL team in reverse order of my power rankings. Very similar to the deep dives by that franchise guy. We're going to hit on some different points, though. Probably won't go in depth, and we'll have our own takes as well. For this episode, it's just going to be me, Nathan. At some point, we'll try to add Harrison and Aiden back in the mix. But for now, I'm going to be breaking down and revealing to you our number 32 overall team, the worst team in the NFL, the Washington Commanders. Now, I think public opinion, this is going to be a very shocking pick. I think a lot of people are especially low on the Cardinals right about now. However, my worst team that I'm predicting is going to be the Washington Commanders. And I'll kind of explain why I'm so pessimistic about this team as opposed to public perception. But before we do that, let us talk about this team's offseason. So obviously last year they went 8-1. And heading into this year, had a lot of turnover at key pieces. So obviously, first addition they brought in Eric Bieniemy to replace Scott Turner as their offensive coordinator. They brought in Jacoby Brissett to help replace Carson Wentz and Taylor Heineke, who are both leaving. Obviously, they also have Sam Howell still in the woodworks. And then drafted Chris Rodriguez out of Kentucky late in the draft. Brought in Andrew Wiley and drafted Braden Daniels, both tackles. On the interior offensive line, they bring in Nick Gates and Ricky Stromberg to replace Trey Turner, Chase Roulier, and Wes Schweitzer. They also bring in KJ Henry to hopefully replace the suspended Shaka Toney. They bring in Cody Barton from Seattle, and their top two picks were both spent on defensive backs in Emmanuel Forbes and Jartavius Martin. Obviously, we kind of hit on all their losses. The only one I didn't mention was Bobby McCain, who they're losing on the back end. And then obviously, Andrew Norwell is still a little bit up in the air. They bring a lot of pieces on the offensive line. He's getting older, has had some injury issues, and they could save money and move on from him. So maybe he's here, maybe he's not. Seems like he may not be, but we'll see, obviously, at some point. So now that we've kind of looked at generic scale of their offseason, let's talk about this coaching staff. Obviously, it all starts with the head coach, Ron Rivera, who's going to be running his same defensive scheme he's been running since his time in Carolina, kind of this 4-2 quarters split safety scheme that he had a lot of success with in Carolina to start off. Obviously, the wheels kind of fell off, and now he's landed here in Washington. While I do think Ron Rivera is a great human and a pretty good leader, I just do not think he translates to winning football in the year 2023. Obviously, when they hired him, they were going through the rebranding. They had the whole Dan Snyder issue, so it was a good hire to get someone in there to reestablish and set a culture that was going to help them through a very scandalous, rough time. However, 3 years later, as a defensive coach, his defenses haven't been great. They haven't won a lot of games, and he's on the hot seat heading into this year. However, they bring in Eric Bieniemy on the offense, who will hopefully help that offense take a step up, which could ultimately save the job of Ron Rivera. Obviously, Eric Bieniemy has been the right-hand man for Andy Reid for the last several seasons in KC, so he's going to bring that same kind of modern pro spread approach. However, he's going from Patrick Mahomes to Sam Howell or Jacoby Brissett, so there's probably going to be some hiccups. However, he was calling plays there, so he's going to have experience. So it's not a brand new thing. Obviously, Eric Bieniemy has had a weird rise. He's been talked about one of the top head coach candidates for several seasons now, but he's finally now. Well, he hasn't even gotten a chance to be head coach. He had to leave to go prove that he's not in the shadow of Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. So, career-wise, I think it's worth a gamble. And, you know, by season's end, we could be looking at Ron Rivera out the door and Eric Bieniemy becoming the new head coach is honestly where I see this going. Because, halfway through the year, if you're not doing very good, especially as how I'm predicting them, I think Ron Rivera goes. I think Jack Del Rio might be your interim head coach because he's had some stints as a head coach before. And so in that case, once the offseason goes, make Eric Bieniemy your head guy and roll from there. You got your coach of the future, hopefully, and then you're maybe be able to figure out the quarterback situation. We'll get more into that in just a bit. So obviously, I respect Eric Bieniemy. I think he will help this offense. However, I think he may need some time. I don't think game one, year one, they'll definitely have some hiccups. And then Jack Del Rio, it's Ron Rivera's defense. He's been a DC or head coach for 20 years now. So, he's seen a little bit of everything. He's just going to be instilling Ron Rivera's plan. So now let's talk about Eric Bieniemy's offense. And the main pieces we're going to start off with where this team is going to be made or broken on offense is the quarterback position. So obviously, as of now, according to our lads, Sam Howell is listed as the starter, and I think it makes a lot of sense to give him a shot. Obviously, he was in that weird draft class where every quarterback, depending on who he asked, was different QB1, and a couple of guys went in the third round, and he dropped all the way to the fifth round. So for whatever reason, NFL teams just did not trust him. However, season before that, he was viewed as potentially a future top first round pick. So weird kind of fall for Sam Howell, and the fact that he fell to the fifth round might end up being a steal. However, he also did fall to the fifth round for a reason. So it's going to be interesting to see how he can develop under Eric Bieniemy. Obviously, he only played the one game last year against Dallas, and he played all right. The last week of the season didn't do a whole lot against a good defense, but, it was just a weird kind of situation. So heading in this year, kind of give him the keys, see what he can do. It's really his job to lose. And then if he's not playing well, give it to Jacoby Brissett. Jacoby Brissett actually had a very decent year last year playing for the Browns. He's a low upside option. Obviously, you're not winning a Super Bowl with Jacoby Brissett. But at some point, this team gets desperate and Sam Howell was not doing the job. Go to Jacoby Brissett to try to help save Ron Rivera's career, I think is very much an option. But last year, he was actually really good. He eliminated mistakes and made a couple of big throws. And, I know it is what it is, but, he graded out as a top 13 quarterback on PFF last year. So he can come in and play very good football. Is he going to win you a whole bunch of games? Not necessarily. Is he going to cost you games? Not necessarily either. He's just going to be a game manager. It's going to kind of rely on the weapons and the system around him to really be excellent. And so this is definitely going to be a bottom 5-ish quarterback room. Maybe bottom 10 if Jacoby Brissett does end up playing a lot of games. But we just don't know what we're going to get from Sam Howell. It's this huge fog of war. Is he going to come in and be Patrick Mahomes and show why he had first-round potential at one point? Probably not. Is he going to come in and be horrible and where they need to move off of him instantly? Probably not, but that chance is definitely more in there than his chances of being Mahomes. He was a fifth-round pick for a reason. So we'll see kind of how this situation plays out and how it develops throughout the year. However, if you're a quarterback, a young quarterback especially, you are very happy that you have Terry McLaurin, Scary Terry. He's been an excellent wide receiver since he entered the league and has not shown any signs of slowing down. Um, Everybody talks about how amazing Terry McLaurin is. He is really good. He just hasn't had great quarterback play to really put him in that tier one of guys as the Jeffersons, the Jamar Chases, Devontae Adams. Does he have the potential to be there? I don't quite think so. Closet take of mine. I think he's an excellent wide receiver, but I think he's more of the, you know, has a ceiling of like the 10th best wide receiver. Like a really good wide receiver, but not Justin Jefferson, Devontae Adams, AJ Brown. Like I think he's kind of just in a not a tier two of guys, but not the top of tier one of wide receivers, if you know what I'm saying. But he's gonna be really excellent, and maybe Eric Bieniemy will be able to get something more out of him, paired with either Jacoby Brissett or Sam Howell. We will kind of see how that breaks down, but obviously you are very happy they have Terry McLaurin. And his running mates in the slot, you're going to have Curtis Samuel and Jahan Dotson. Jahan Dotson, first overall pick, had a pretty decent rookie year. Obviously, he missed some time, but when he was out there, he produced and played pretty well. I am a believer in Jahan Dotson, so I think Terry McLaurin and Jahan Dotson does have potential to be one of, if not, probably won't be, it's not going to be the best 1-2 punch at wide receiver, but it's going to be one of the better wide receiver duos in the league. So you got a true number one wide receiver, and Jahan Dotson may not ever end up being a true number one, but he's going to be a damn great number two wide receiver. So then you're obviously happy of two great wide receivers on the outside. Then you got Curtis Samuel as a very fun kind of slot option. Obviously, ran a 4.3. He's an insane athlete, great with the hands, with the ball in his hands. And Eric Bieniemy is really going to have the potential to do some creative stuff with Curtis Samuel. He's lined all over the field. He's been running back, slot wide, like he's been everywhere. Just a true gadget player, and Eric Bieniemy will hopefully get a lot out of him in this scheme. And then, as a fourth wide receiver, you got Diami Brown, who's shown that he's an okay wide receiver when he's gotten the chance. He just hasn't gotten the chance to play. But who knows? Maybe linking up with his college quarterback can kind of help him break out and kind of establish that chemistry that they already had. So obviously you do have a group of four really good wide receivers. Mitchell Tinsley is a rookie undrafted wide receiver that has a decent amount of hype behind him. And then you got Dax Milne, another kind of slot guy, and you got Marcus Kemp, who's really the only big body wide receiver this team would have. That's probably the 6 or 7 that they're keeping. But really, you're relying on these top three guys, and if they get injured, you'll kind of start having some issues. But you do have a really excellent starting three that all kind of have their own different roles in this offense and will be productive. So this team is going to have a good passing offense because they got good wide receivers, and you have at least one quarterback that will get the job done. And then when it comes to the running game, you have Brian Robinson, who is a good running back. Obviously has a great story of, he was getting robbed and got stabbed a couple times before the NFL season starts, but obviously was able to make the comeback and became a good running back. Is he anything better than good, though? Not really. He just doesn't have the true juice to be a true elite a true elite running back. He's a very good running back. But, I mean, if we're being honest, the difference between him and like an Ezekiel Elliott or Jamal Williams isn't a whole lot. He just doesn't have the juice. You can even look at that and some stats like PFF's breakaway percentage or 10-plus yard runs. He just doesn't have a whole lot of them. He just does not have the top-end speed to really break a whole bunch of crazy runs. And then you have Antonio Gibson, who's going to be more of your third down receiving back. He's shown a really good ability as a pass-catching back. However, he is limited as a rushing back due to just poor vision at times. And he's just not a great runner of the ball. So you have a decent 1-2 punch there. You got kind of your first and down, get us yards back, and then you got Antonio Gibson, who can hopefully be more creative in the pass game. Are you super excited with these running backs? No. Both of them have their limitations, but together, the tandem of them will give you solid production. So obviously, you do have a good group of weaponry here. However, where this team kind of begins falling apart on offense, despite the question marks at quarterback, is this offensive line. I didn't address tight end. You have Logan Thomas, John Bates, and Cole Turner. None of them are really great. Logan Thomas, former quarterback, became tight end, broke out a couple years ago, but I think injuries and age is getting to him, so you're just not going to get a whole lot from this tight end room. Eric Bieniemy is used to having Travis Kelce. Not any danger of the tight end position on this offense. So back to the O-line. Left tackle, we have Charles Leno, who is a very decent left tackle. He's not a true elite left tackle, and he will have a couple games where he gets beat, but he's going to give you good left tackle play for a majority of the season. The way it's currently listed out on Our Lads, kind of their depth chart, shows Chris Paul starting with Nick Gates starting at center. However, it seems very likely that, especially if Andrew Norwell is not coming back, where you throw Nick Gates at left guard because he's played center and left guard, and then rookie Ricky Stromberg will take over at the center. Obviously, I think that would be a lot better. It'll give you two kind of decent options instead of one decent and one poor option. So we'll kind of see how that ends up going, and maybe, at the end of the preseason, towards, week 1, they'll kind of show that is the case. But you spent a third-round pick on Ricky Stromberg. I feel like you're probably going to end up using him, especially over Chris Paul, who was a 7th-round pick last year. So we'll see how they end up doing that, but I feel like Nick Gates and Ricky Stromberg is a better interior duo than Chris Paul and Nick Gates, but we'll see. Then right guard, Sam Cosmi kind of kick in from right tackle because they bring in Andrew Wiley. Either way, both of them have played guard, both of them have played tackle, so I think either way you will get okay play from them. They're not going to be an amazing group of guard or tackle on that side, but they'll be decent. They'll block, but I think they'll throw Cosmi at guard and Wiley at tackle, considering that they brought Wiley over from KC. You got Cornelius Lucas, who's kind of a good swing piece. Anytime he's come in, he's been decent. Then the other depth is really not much to talk about. So overall, I just don't see a very high-end offense coming out of this team. Starting off with mainly the quarterback play, we just don't know what we're going to get. We're either going to have really good or really poor play from Sam Howell, maybe. I mean, he's yet to give us any reason why he should have excellent play. So we'll be expecting okay play from Sam Howell. And if he's not cutting it, then we're going to upgrade to Jacoby Brissett. You know what I mean? Like, it's just not a whole lot of excitement coming from this quarterback position. Pair that with an offensive line that's going to be okay. Just to me, it's a recipe for disaster, especially with a brand new offensive coordinator. Best case scenario is Eric Bieniemy is really the guy. Sam Howell shows why he could have been a first overall pick, and Terry McLaurin and Jahan Dotson and Curtis Samuel have super productive years. I kind of see it where we're going to have poor play from Sam Howell. Jacoby Brissett comes in, kind of plays all right, and the offensive line and weapons have okay seasons. And this is going to be kind of a bottom 5 to 10 offense. To me, is the most likely example that we're going to have, or most likely scenario that we're going to have from this offense this year. So, I mean, I see why people are viewing this team higher, especially as we look over to the defense. This D-line has been a staple of this team for several years now, and it is where a lot of excitement comes. However, most of that excitement from the defensive line comes from former second overall pick Chase Young, where I am very low on Chase Young. as a Houston city, as a man based from Houston, Chase Young is Jadeveon Clowney to me. He is the exact same person. I will argue this to my death. Chase Young, Jadeveon Clowney, interchangeable. It's just he was reborn in Chase Young's body. And so I think you'll get a good run defender, but not a great pass rusher. And, you can look at some of his previous seasons. He just hasn't shown a whole lot of, he hasn't showed us that he's taken that step to be a true number one edge player like they're expecting. Obviously he got hurt last year, but he had 24 pressures through however many games he played. Then he obviously came back from injury, played the last 3 games, so you can't really, I'm not going to hold any of those games against him. But kind of to be determined what we're going to get from Chase Young. Obviously he has a full offseason to get healthy, and so he will be playing day one and will hopefully look a lot better. But I just don't see him becoming this high-end elite number one edge rusher. I just don't. I think you are getting Jadeveon Clowney. It's exactly what's happening. And then on the interior, you have Jonathan Allen and Darren Payne, 2 really good interior presence. Neither of them are really elite pass rushers, but they're not bad at it. Jonathan Allen's really in that kind of tier 2 of guys. He's not a Chris Jones or an Aaron Donald, but he's still a really good pass rusher and run defender. He's more of the pass rusher. Darren Payne's more the run defender. But even then, last year they both had really productive seasons getting after the quarterback. And if Montez Sweat on the edge and Chase Young are able to take steps up, then they'll be even more scary to face on the inside. And then Montez Sweat is really growing into this team's number one edge rusher. Last year he had 62 pressure, so not quite in that tier 1 of guys like the Max Crosbys, the Bosas, the Parsons, the Watts, but he's definitely getting to that tier 2 and might even take another step up into one of those tier 1s of guys. So I think either way, between Montez Sweat and Chase Young, you will get good production, but I think it's coming from Montez, not from Chase. And then on the depth pieces, F.A. Obata is decent, and then Casey Hill, James Smith-Henry, and the rookie KJ Henry will all be solid rotational guys. Then on the interior, Fedarian Mathis, John Ridgeway, and Abdullah Anderson, same thing, just a bunch of solid pieces on the inside, but obviously those top 4 guys is where this team is really going to be made or broken. And heading to the secondary, they have some decent options. Obviously, Kendall Fuller started a lot of games in this league and has been really good at doing it. So obviously, you're happy you have him. Then on the right side, you bring in your other cornerback spot, you have Emmanuel Forbes, who is tiny. Obviously, he needed to go to one of these kind of off-zone coverage schemes just because he does not have the size to hold up as a press man corner. I mean, let's see. He's listed at 6'1", $166. That is tiny. Emmanuel Forbes is not going to be able to press anybody. Imagine him against Mike Evans. Mike Evans is going to body him. But if he's able to sit back, kind of be instinctive, be a nice zone cut corner, kind of eyes on the quarterback and make plays, he could have a really good career here. But we'll kind of find out fairly quickly how his size is going to play in the NFL. And then they bring in Jartavius Martin from Illinois. Played safety, played slot corner, so let's kind of see how they use him as that kind of rotational piece, if he's going to play a lot more safety or more slot corner. Either way, he'll be a little bit of a matchup, dependent. He'll be used well from this scheme. Depth-wise, after that, Benjamin St. Juste played a lot of games last year, and it's hit or miss. Danny Johnson, I think he's listed at all at 5'9", but it's not very good in the slot. Is a lot better as an outside corner in this scheme, so He might struggle if they throw him in there instead of Dartavius Martin. Maybe they kick him out. They have a lot of kind of rotation they can be doing to kind of find out what's going to be the best piece for this team. Then you got Rashad Wildgoose, who actually graded out as a decent cornerback in the slot, but he's not a great player. Other depth, the only real notable guy is Troy Apke, who's, 4.3 elite speed. You've been waiting for him to break out, but he just hasn't been very good in the NFL, so you probably won't get anything from him, but you never really know. He ran a 4.3 coming out of Penn State, but hasn't been a great player since he's been in the NFL. Safeties, you got Dark Forest and Cameron Curl, who are both really good safeties. Cameron Curl graded out as actually the second best safety last year, according to PFF. He's not the second best safety in the league, but he is a very decent safety and plays really well in the scheme. Derek Forrest, a young guy, is also just a very smart safety on the back end. And then you got Percy Butler, Jeremy Reeves, Terrell Burgess. Jeremy Reeves played a good amount for this team last year, but Cameron Curl and Derek Forrest are going to be your main guys. Maybe Dartavius Martin plays as a third safety with one of these other guys in the slot. Kind of TBD what they fully do with that situation, but either way, you will have a good D-line, a pretty decent secondary you'd expect. Then linebackers, Jamin Davis and Cody Barton are both decent guys. You're maybe hoping that Jamin Davis takes another step forward or Cody Barton continues being a decent linebacker. So a lot of hype is coming from this defense. However, to me, as of late, these Ron Rivera defenses haven't played like amazing elite defenses like you would expect from him, given his pedigree as a really smart defensive mind. And especially since I'm lower on Chase Young, I just don't see this being a great defense. Like, I don't think Dartavius Martin and Emmanuel Forbes as rookies are going to come in and make this defense a lot better than it was last year. Where last year it wasn't some amazing elite defense like people were expecting. So obviously you're happy with a lot of the pieces you have, but especially if you start getting injuries like on the back end or some of these key guys on the D line, I think the holes in this defense are really going to start showing under Ron Rivera. And then paired what I think is going to be a poor offense and a overrated defense, they have a brutal schedule as well. So obviously, start off with Arizona. They'll be favored in that game. They'll probably be their biggest slam dunk with a Kyler Murray less Cardinals team. But then after that, they have to go to Denver, come back home for Buffalo, and then go to Philadelphia. So I think best case scenario, you're 1-3 there. Thursday night football against Justin Fields and the Bears. I mean, they could win that game, but to me, I feel like Chicago is definitely or I would expect Chicago to win that. And then you got 2 road games after that against Atlanta and the Giants to come home to face Philly and then go on the road again for New England and Seattle. Come home for the Giants, going to go to Dallas for Thanksgiving, come home to face the Dolphins. Then you got your bye week. Then afterwards, you have to go to LA, to the Jets, and then have San Francisco and Dallas at home. Like, that is a brutal schedule with a lot of really tough games to win. I think that game against the Giants is winnable. Obviously, I said growing in Houston, I've watched Dallas lose a lot on Thanksgiving, so I think they can come and win that game easily. But you do not have a whole lot of winnable games. Even the more winnable games you do have on the schedule is at Atlanta, at Seattle, at New England. Then the teams that you have coming home to play you're happy with, but it's Buffalo and Miami and San Francisco, who are not easy games. So their line is currently set at 7.5. I don't see 8 wins on this schedule. I just don't. I have them going under their prediction. I have them around 5.5 wins. So looking at their schedule, what I really think is going to happen is they'll win and go on a bit of a tail slide. I think they'll lose these 2 games. Maybe they can win this against Philly, but I just don't think they do. So week 9 or 10, best case scenario, you're 2-8 is kind of how I feel it. I mean, maybe they can steal one of these games to maybe make them, 4-6, but I just don't see a winning record here. So, at some point from week 5 to week 10, especially if you're 3-7 best case, is I think we're going to see, I think or 2-8, we're going to see Jacoby Brissett come over for the last half of this schedule. And, maybe Ron Rivera gets fired in week 10, and oh, would you look at that? The witch is dead, and maybe they win this first game, like you've seen from when head coaches get fired, but then going to Dallas. I think they could lose that. Miami won't be an easy game. The Rams on the road could be a winnable game, but I'll give them that one. But going to the Jets is going to be rough, and then 2 hard NFC opponents to finish your season. So, I have them at 5-12, and that's with me, no, wait, no. There we go. That's right. I have them at 4-13. Best case scenario. So yeah, maybe best case scenario, you get to 8. I don't see this team having a winning record and competing for the playoffs. And this is best case scenario, winning a lot of tough games. But the way I see it is you are getting 4 wins from this team. Where did I bet it's somewhere, but probably you're getting 4 wins. So I think the under is definitely in play for this team. I think the first overall pick is also definitely very much in play for this team. So to me, what I really expect to happen is, you struggle. Defensively, you're not great, and your offense is going to have poor quarterback play. And so you fire Ron Rivera and head into next year with a top 3 pick, maybe the number 1 overall pick with a chance to get Caleb Williams or Drake May. Pair that with a new head coach in Eric Bieniemy, and I think this could be a real exciting team for the future. But I think for that, it's going to require a step back first. So just recapping everything. Last year, they went 8-1 with an easy schedule. They had a 3-6-1 record against winning teams, but their 5 wins were against teams with losing records, against Houston, Chicago, Indy, Atlanta, and Green Bay. None of those teams, Atlanta and Green Bay, were decent, but 3 of your wins came from teams with top 4 picks. But this year, they have a brutal schedule. They're going against 10 teams with winning records, and the teams that didn't have winning records that they're going against is at Denver, at New England, and at the Jets. So that's 13 really tough games that they have to go against, as I've been saying. A lot of this upside obviously hinges on what you get from Sam Howell. If he's not great and you go to Jacoby Brissett, you're going to have a very low ceiling team. Sam Howell becomes a really good player, then who knows, you could really threaten in the future to have a good offense with this team. However, pair maybe poor quarterback play with a poor offensive line, it's not going to be great. And you have good weapons, but outside of Terry McLaurin, a bunch of the guys you have there are good, have not proven to be great yet. The defense obviously hinges a lot on Chase Young and their first 2 round picks, the rookies in Jartavius Martin and Emmanuel Forbes. And then finally, are we even getting a full year of Ron Rivera? He is on the hot seat heading into this year. And based off this schedule and this roster, I just do not see a way where they win a lot of games. So as I'm saying, if, week 10 or 11, they have 2-3 wins, is he still going to be here? I don't think so. So hopefully I've convinced you on to why I think the Commanders are going to be the worst team in the NFL. If there's anywhere you disagree, let me know. Let's have a discussion on where you think I'm wrong about this team and where you think I might be right on this team. With that being said, thank you all very much for watching. Y'all have a very wonderful day, guys.